Good morning, everybody. Good morning. What is going on? Monday, July 13th, halfway done with July. What's going on with 2026? Jesus, relax. Everybody slow down for a second. I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you for being here on this morning. Cheers to whatever you're drinking on this fine Monday. Got a busy show today. I feel like Mondays and Fridays are always going to be the busiest just because I'm trying to pack everything in. But Monday's usually the busiest. I got a guest as well today, so that obviously is going to less talking from me. That's when people really get excited. They get super excited. I see the chat. It was like WW. As soon as I stop talking. All right. I appreciate you guys being here. Hopefully everybody had a phenomenal weekend. Shout out to everybody. You know, we asked if you guys can help us get to over 36,000 subscribers. You listened, and you got us over 36,000 subscribers. So thank you very much for doing that. 40,000 will come next. Let me give everyone a quick rundown what we got going on for the show today. And we'll hit on, obviously, a lot of these topics. A lot of, again, you know, the idea and the concept, always just trying to hit on the topics that make most sense around Lakers, NBA basketball, whatever we think is relevant is what we hit on. You guys are always welcome to create your own topics by just putting it in the chat. We'll do our best to try to get to it. Like I said in the past, if I don't get to any of your comments, 100% that's on Eric. I have nothing to do with that. I'm an innocent bystander. I'm like a middleman. That's it. I'm the middleman. All right, here's what we got going on for the show today. I got some sound that I want to play from Austin Reaves, who was on the Dan Patrick Show, right, Eric? Dan Patrick Show. He's on the Dan Patrick Show and opened up a little bit about his signing with the Lakers, how his offseason's going, what the plan was, what they were telling him behind the scenes of what the Lakers are trying to build. I actually think that's a really kind of interesting conversation, if I'm being honest with you, because I think Austin Reaves, for a lot of people, for a lot of Laker fans, I think this man's going to be stepping into a whole new world. And I'm already just like, I feel like Lakers are already ready to jump on his throat, and he hasn't done anything. Remember how LeBron used to get blamed for everything? That might be flipping a little bit here. Reaves used to get blamed for like 15, 20% of stuff. That number's probably going to go up. Got some clips I want to play from Austin Reaves, so we'll play that. The latest on Jonathan Kuminga. Is Kuminga going to be one of those players where he's rumored to be a Laker basically every year and never becomes a Laker? I don't have the answer for you guys, but let's just say that there's a lot there. Some stuff happened over the weekend that could pretty much determine whether Jonathan Kuminga is going to be a Los Angeles Laker or he won't be a Los Angeles Laker. There's also some conversation out there about, hey, is this whole thing just is he just waiting to see what LeBron does first? And no shock, it's midway through July. LeBron still hasn't made it this. You got to milk that thing, you know? LeBron's trying to, a little bit of attention. A little bit of attention LeBron's looking for. Could this all just be on hold, waiting for LeBron? Once LeBron makes a decision, then Jonathan Kuminga makes a decision. So we'll talk a little bit about that, what some of the latest was over the weekend. Eric Pincus is going to be our guest today. Does a phenomenal job. He's in Vegas right now. I know he does a couple of things when he's out there during the summer league, and he's out there in Las Vegas. So he'll give us, his thoughts of where things stand, what path the Lakers can potentially make of still getting Jonathan Kuminga here. What are plan Bs? All that stuff. He also graded the Lakers. He went through Laker grades, and I think you're starting to see that more and more now. But his grades have more to do with each player that the Lakers either brought in or let go. So we'll get into that with him, which I think is going to be kind of a good way of, I don't know if not finalizing, but just kind of some bigger context. Okay, this player goes, what's the grade? This player comes in, what's the grade? So we'll do that. Adou Thiero and Cameron Carr. I think there's a little bit of a conversation to be had here. There's more and more articles that are coming out about those two players and how their potential role could be on the Lakers. I thought Eric mentioned something to me that was a good point. He's like, hey, listen, if they don't get Kuminga, I mean, obviously they still need in my opinion, get Kuminga. But if they didn't, or the player that you got was maybe not the player that you were hoping for, Does it open up more opportunities for Adou Thiero and Cameron Carr to kind of raise their profile as a Laker? I still think they're going to be able to raise their profile. I still think they're going to get opportunities, but I think the bigger question now is going to be how much of a role can these players have? And really, you can even call it their first full year. I know Adou Thiero was on the Lakers last year, but really, what he do? He was hit with a lot of injuries. And now that the team is built the way it is, and now that they are going to depend on youngsters and everything else, how can that role change? So we'll hit on that a little bit. Got some stuff around the NBA that we'll make mention of as well. So we'll hit some of the top NBA stories. What is it? Wemby getting paid. Bam Adebayo taking a right hook to Tyler Hero. What the hell's going on there? Gary Trent signing a deal to stay with the Bucks. So we'll get into all that. Former Laker head coach Frank Vogel joining the Golden State Warriors. We'll do all that. A little bit of Summer League as well, and then we will call it a Monday. So thank you very much for being here. Appreciate you guys all hanging out. Let's get to a couple of the comments here before we get started and go from there. Everybody's on the Kaluma trade. Everybody's in. Everybody's in on that front. If you're watching some of this Summer League, obviously a real just an athlete stud. Kaluma two-way. Kaluma is the truth. Got to give him a two-way. What'd he score? What'd he drop? 30? He gets 34? Sheesh. That's a lot of points in a Summer League game. Only problem, and I'll say this, then we'll get the show started. The only problem is, it's Summer League. Now, listen, don't get me wrong. I think for the Lakers, because especially they're taking a little bit of a new approach. And if you're a good franchise, you're going to find some young studs, or you're just going to have a process where you understand how to develop them and they do get opportunities and everything else. But it's Summer League. I mean, I saw Dalton Connect kill it in Summer League, and every Laker fan's like, just sign him to a 7-year deal. Go over the second apron. Whatever you got to do. Doesn't matter. I was probably with you guys on that. But you guys know, obviously, Summer League games, it's a little bit different. All right, let me get one more in here. I think LeBron signs with a team no one was expecting. Why is San Antonio reaching out about a possible Bronny trade? Could it be because Bron is thinking or going to San Antonio and they're prepping? Yeah, I think there's a lot of scenarios that play out. I think if it's up to LeBron, when's the first preseason game? I think LeBron might just stretch this through and then make an announcement during opening night of the NFL during halftime or something. Look, the guy, he's a self-marketer. He knows how to market himself. All right, let's get the show started. Thank you again for being here. Appreciate that. Again, if you hang out on this channel, you like the content that I put out, you like what we do on a daily basis, just support the channel by subscribing. And that'd be phenomenal. All right, let's take a look here at a couple of the topics and get things started. Pincus in about 10 minutes or so, maybe even a little bit quicker than that. Austin Reaves. I'm gonna start out the show with Austin Reaves because I want to save some of this other stuff with Jonathan Kuminga and everything else. I want to save that for my time with Eric Pincus. Austin Reaves was on the Dan Patrick show. This was on Friday, so obviously after our show ended, and it's interesting, right? Like, here's a player that has done such an incredible job over his career and has put himself in a place where he's a legit player in the NBA, was underpaid for a while, wants to be a Los Angeles Laker, also has a lot of criticism that comes with his time with the Lakers, and I think a lot of eyes are obviously going to be on Austin Reaves. I think right now, if you ask most Laker fans, hey, do you think Austin Reaves is a Laker in 3 years? Or do you think the Lakers used Austin Reaves as an asset to go get another piece that fits around Luka? I think most people would go to the second one here. But let's do this. I mean, he is a Laker right now. And, the hope is that he does excel with the Lakers and that he's worth every penny of his contract, because at the absolute worst, if things don't work out as planned, then obviously you can always try to trade Austin Reaves, but you want that value to be there. My point, I think I'm trying to make more than anything else, I think there's a piece every time somebody talks about Austin Reaves, there isn't this long-term conversation about Austin Reaves. It's always like, well, what can you get for Austin Reaves? So that's obviously has something to do with it as well. Eric, let's play the clip on. Let's play his free agency clip, that first one, and then I want to play something else about kind of the long-term vision that Austin Reaves was told about on the Lakers, which I agree with, and hopefully this is going to be the case. But let's take a listen. This is Austin Reaves on if he thought he would go anywhere else during free agency. Take a listen.
The one thing that the Lakers, had the advantage on was being able to talk to me as soon as the season was over, and July 1st was when everybody else could come in. So, it was crazy, but it was good that the Lakers had that opportunity to get something done, so I didn't have to actually hit the market.
Would you buy?
All right, so Reaves talking about obviously the advantage the Lake Show had, the big advantage that they had. They can talk. And they can, go through. They can match anything that was out there. And there was rumblings about the Detroit Pistons that were, hey, Pistons might come in, and you know what? They might be offering him a 4-year deal, 175, and the Lakers end up 4 years, 185. So he talks a little bit about, obviously the advantage that the Lakers had, making it happen. I think the clip to me that was most interesting, and I find this first year. If you told me of all the storylines of this upcoming season with the Lakers, which I know we got a couple of months here, it's not like it's starting anytime soon. But if you told me that one of the top storylines coming into this season, I will tell you that yes, it's going to be Walker Kessler, and yes, it's going to be Luka's team, and yes, it's going to be Hadis Mamu and Quentin Grimes and some of these other players or the youngsters. And we'll see what happens. Obviously with a guy like Jonathan Kuminga. It's a whole new chapter for the Lakers. But one of the bigger storylines is going to be Austin Reaves. And is he worth it? And did the Lakers not the right decision part? The right decision part, I think, obviously has a lot to do with it as well. And there's obviously a ton of angles that are going to be there in regards to that. So I think that part's going to be interesting, and I think the Austin Reaves conversation is going to be interesting as well. Let's play another clip here. I got one more of Austin Reaves. This one is really interesting because this one obviously, and it's the right approach to take. This one is talking about the Lakers' future. How are they approaching it? How they're trying to be more sustainable for the future. So let's take a listen to this one. This is Austin Reaves again with Dan Patrick.
Yeah, I had a lot of talks with Rob. I'm really close with Luka and JJ as well. And, we're just building something that, can be sustainable for not just now, but the future. I feel like I seen something the other day that I'm the oldest guy on the team and I'm 28. So that's it's actually crazy to me. But, we want to have success now and, 5 or 6, 7 years down in the future.
All right, that's Austin Reaves kind of talking about the big picture here. I think that's organization says the right thing. Everybody says that. If you're interviewing for a job and they're not talking about long term, then I don't know if that's the place that you should be going to. If you are, do you really want kind of like I'm just going to be at this place for 6 months and then I'll figure it out after that. It's like, no, I don't want to do that. So I think obviously talking about big picture is going to be a key piece for the Lake Show, and we'll see what eventually happens. But Austin Reaves, like I said, and you guys can put it in the comments. What's your excitement level about Austin Reaves, and do you think that this is the year that there is going to be some stability with the Lakers? And without LeBron James, is this going to kind of allow the Lakers to be in a much better position moving forward? Or do you think that there's also just going to be on a ton of pressure on Austin Reaves, and how confident everybody is that he could be the version? I will say, if I'm painting a picture of the type of player for Austin Reaves to be worth what his contract is, he's going to have to be flirting with all-star level. He is, and that's let's just say maybe he doesn't become an all-star, but he's in that conversation as an all-star. And he's going to have to be that kind of year in and year out as the Lakers, obviously look for the big picture, and Lakers are obviously planning for the future. And as he put in that quote, that the conversation that they were having with Austin Reaves was, what's it going to look like over the next 5, 6, 7 years? Well, that's long-term in NBA standards. And the Lakers doesn't really feel like in the past have been thinking 5, 6 years down the road. I feel like for the most part, Lakers are always looking at what's right in front of them and couldn't really look at what's down the horizon. All right, let's do this. We got our guest coming up here right now, Eric Pincus, who's part of Bleacher Report, does a phenomenal job, obviously covering the NBA, is a frequent guest of the show, taking some time to join us this morning. Good morning, sir.
Sure, thanks for having me. I'm in Las Vegas, Summer League, and it's kind of a stark background, but we'll make do.
Oh, no. I like this. This is like, no one can know where you are. No one can know what hotel you're at. I like this, Eric.
I'm in a safe house in
Yeah, you're incognito. I like this. What's your, just so I know, what's a typical day in Eric Pincus's world when you're in Vegas?
Well, this year it's basically head over to the gym around noon and watch games, network, talk to people. It's really, honestly, it's just talking to people. You walk around the pavilion, and I don't get that far. I've been around long enough that you bump into people, agents, people with teams, students, former students of mine, and you just catch up and network. You talk shop, you talk what we like, what we don't like, talk anything, go to some parties at night or whatever. I'm not someone who's going out past a certain hour in Vegas because
I don't believe you. I don't believe you, Eric. I don't believe you.
I wish I had time to play some poker, but I haven't played poker in a very long time, like a few decades, at least a few years. It's been, but other than that, I'm having fun, and the heat's, is what it is. But you're just not outside much, so it's a great time. I love Summer League in Vegas. It's one of the best events every year for the NBA, for sure.
Well, I think, and I asked that question because I know you're, heavily involved in so many different things. So I was curious to see what the day-to-day is. Okay, so let's, I'd love to get your perspective here. I think from the last time we talked to today, I think the last time we talked was at let's see, which one was this? Was it the LeBron or the Reaves? We had something broke when we were on. Like we were going through a streak here where every time I was on, something.
I think it was that LeBron committed to leaving.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
And it was worded so confusing. I'm like, by the time I read it 7 times, I'm like, Pincus, you tell me what the hell's going on. I don't know if I understand what Rich Paul was talking about here. Okay, so with that being said, let's just from your understanding and kind of watching from your perspective, where do you think we are on the Jonathan Kuminga stuff? And again, I think this has more to do with, it seems like, well, what domino was going to fall, and is a lot of this waiting on the LeBron piece? Do Lakers still have an angle where they can figure out a way to try to bring Jonathan Kuminga to the Lakers? Is this just come now down to a sign and trade, and Atlanta has to be involved? Can you just, from your perspective, give one of the names that has been thrown around the Lakers now for a couple of weeks? What is your read on the Jonathan Kuminga front?
Right. Well, so the starting point, Lakers have spent their money, so they don't have anything to give him other than the minimum. So that's the starting point in terms of, they just can't sign him out right now. Could they trade players and get back under the cap? If that were the case, if that were the plan, they wouldn't have signed Austin Reaves and they wouldn't have signed Sexton, because that pushed them significantly over the cap instead of just being at the cap. Once they made those moves, they're significantly over. So like, let's say if the plan, this isn't the plan, if it was to like trade Vanderbilt to another team, give them some draft comp, and then be 12 under, that still wouldn't have been enough for Kuminga, right? Because he wants closer to 30, let's be honest, let alone 20, right? So the other challenge is that because what we just said, they can't just sign him. You only can get him now via sign and trade. And a sign and trade requires a 3-year deal. So now the first year has to be fully guaranteed, no options on the second or third year, but years 2 and 3 can be non-guaranteed. But that's not favorable to Jonathan Kuminga, who has to be the one to agree to this, right? So if you're Kuminga, and let's say the Lakers are offering 15, it's not 15 for a year, you opt out and we'll sign you for more the next year. It's 15 with 5% raises for 3 total years. So it's not the kind of contract that a player like Kuminga is looking for. So that's, I think, the core challenge is, can the Lakers come up with enough, or are they willing to pay enough? And what is the most that they can pay to get someone like Vanderbilt Kuminga via sign and trade? And if you're trading Vanderbilt, the mechanism is called an expanded traded player exception. And the most they can do, if it's just Vanderbilt, is 21.5 starting. So you add about 9.1 million to Vanderbilt's salary. They could do a sign and trade for Kuminga, 21.5, but now the Hawks have to take in Vanderbilt. They may not want to do that, right? So that's where you run into the logistics. This is their third team. The Lakers don't have much when it comes to draft compensation. They do have one first-round swap. I believe they have 2 or 3 seconds. I'd have to double-check that.
Yeah, I think you're right there. Might be 3 from last I read, but I know they just got 2 back.
Yeah,
so it might
it's
be
23. They got 2031, 2032 from Washington, and their own 2033, and then they have a swap in first round swap in 2032. So I don't know where the Hawks stand on adding that kind of money to their books just haphazardly, because this is a team that just doesn't go into the luxury tax. And so where they are right now, without double checking, it's been a minute because I've been in Vegas. They have, last count, 16 players, one more than the required. You have to get to 15. If they then go to 17 and you add Vanderbilt, that pushes them into the tax. So that's, I think, if you look at like what's the heart of the problem, they can't sign they can't sign Kuminga outright. They need the sign and trade. They don't have a ton to offer. They have to come up with enough money that that Kuminga's happy. I don't think the Hawks want Vanderbilt. And we've got reports, and we've got great reporters saying that the Hawks are open to this kind of thing. And I'm sure they are in some framework. But usually what we get in media, all of us, collectively, is a percentage of the truth, not the whole truth. So we don't, they're not telling us the actual exact details of the conversation. So maybe that means Buddy Hield has to go out in a different way. Maybe that means, something else, or maybe it's a combination of Jake LaRavia, Dalton Connect, trying to come up with enough money that isn't quite as much as Vanderbilt, but then because Vanderbilt has an extra year. So, there's some combination that could work, but I don't see it as an obvious one yet.
Does this make you, because as you break that down, and maybe a week ago if we were having this conversation, and I get it, a lot of the times, there could be they could use the Lakers as a leverage play. They could, Jonathan Kuminga may very well want to come to the Lakers and just say, listen, if you can get to this number, then maybe we can figure it out, or you got to jump through hoops to make it happen. But as we sit here today, Monday, July 13th, does it seem like it's just too challenging to make something like that work? Or do you still think there's, still a strong likelihood that Kuminga could end up a Laker?
So the from the Kuminga perspective, right? Because he's ultimately the one who makes the choice of where he goes. He wants to get the most he can get, and he'll probably go to any of the 30 teams that will pay that. Like if he can get let's say he wants 25. Yep. And that's the number that the team paying him 25, boom, done. It doesn't matter what team. It doesn't matter, they're not a good team, they're not a bad. It just doesn't matter. He's got to get paid. And so if the Lakers are the only real path to that, then there's a likelihood that it gets done somehow. But the Lakers may not have enough to get someone to take Vanderbilt, or there may not be a combination that works. There's 3-team trades, but like, what if let's say you're bringing in the Nets or something, and the Nets get Vanderbilt. This is not a rumor. This is just whatever. They have a little cap room. They take Vanderbilt. What are they getting compensated to do so? While what are the Hawks getting to orchestrate this? Like they have to get something to give Kuminga to the Lakers. And yeah, they don't want anything back, but equally they need to get paid. So do the Lakers, with their one swap and their 3 seconds, have enough to compensate both teams? So that's kind of the core of it. So is it possible? Of course, we have some weirdness in the NBA right now in the terms of like we have a Kawhi trade from the Clippers to the Raptors that's on hold. There's theoretically a possibility that Kawhi's contract is voided and that trade dies, but that $50 million comes off of the Clippers books. If you're Kuminga's people, you kind of have to wait and see, like, is there something somewhere where there's an opportunity? And the Lakers aren't the only team that could do a sign and trade. So is there some other team that maybe a team's going after Peyton Watson, and maybe Peyton Watson is waiting on the Clippers to figure out what happens with Kawhi? there's all these dominoes. You mentioned what's the first domino. There's a lot of dominoes that are, that for a Laker fan, you're going to be Laker centric, right? Of course. But for Jonathan Kuminga, he's got to find the way to get paid, and that may mean waiting. And so there is no rush. Everyone wants clarity. Everyone wants to know what they're going to get.
Sure.
But we'll find out soonish from the NBA what's going to happen with Kawhi. That trade will go through. The Clippers will make their moves. There was some rumor, and I don't know, I can't say who reported it, but that Cleveland was interesting. I don't see how that's possible. I'm missing something there because they have such a high payroll that they couldn't do a sign and trade for Kuminga. So maybe he's considering signing for cheap, like $6 million for a year. But that's that's not what the Lakers would be offering, whether they're offering 20 or 15 or whatever. So there's just no answer yet because, it's not time for an answer. But I think the Lakers are still, if they're the one offering the most, that's where Kuminga is going to be motivated most to go. Then it's about figuring out how to make it happen. And I don't want to say it's a no. It's certainly a possibility, but it's as of July 13th, it's in the wind right now.
I got you had done a article about just kind of grading all the offseason moves that the Lakers made. I want to get into that in a second, but how much do you think the getting Jonathan Kuminga can change your outlook of the Lakers summer, whether they got him or they didn't? Is it that big of a still looming question in your mind of how Kuminga could kind of change things if the Lakers got him, and how there'd be a void there if the Lakers didn't get him?
I'm still doing research to get a sense, but my feelings are the way the Lakers went about doing what they did with Kessler, really defines who they are for the next few years. They had two pathways to getting talent. One was, three if you count LeBron. If LeBron and them worked together, they could have, maybe done a sign and trade. But take the LeBron aspect out. They could use their cap room to take on someone and save the picks, and then trade Vanderbilt and some other contracts with those picks to add a fourth key player. Let's say you call up the Pelicans with the offer that they gave to Utah with all those picks. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You include Vanderbilt and other pieces, probably LaRavia, Connect, et cetera, and you bring in Trey Murphy. So that to me was the pathway that they needed to take, because they pushed their chips all in on three core guys. And, Mamu and, these are good gets,
Ancillary.
Grimes.
Sure.
Yeah. But they're not the foundational core pieces. Well, we'll find out. Maybe they are when they're here, but on paper they're important, but not the Luka important or the Austin or the Kessler important. And you would say Trey Murphy is of a higher caliber. If you pushed all that in, the risk that the Lakers face is that the Jazz match that contract on Kessler. And so what they paid for was certainty, to know that they would get a starting caliber center. And so is that the right move or the wrong move? I don't love they pushed in to probably be the third best team in the West behind OKC and San Antonio, but maybe they're better than I think they are. I mean, it's a risk. Everything's a risk, but they went all in on something that I would rather they go all in on with Trey Murphy or someone like that. And so that's what I'm trying to weigh. So I talked to someone with the Jazz who said we would have matched. That's what they're saying. But they also wouldn't have gone into the tax. And if the Lakers paid 38 or something instead of 30, 31 for Kessler, maybe there was a number that they don't match. So these are, we'll never know scenarios, because these are things we'll never know. We'll never live this timeline. So if you bring in Kuminga, you are filling a void because they don't have an athletic forward at that level. And, the challenge I have with Kuminga is it's the promise of who he is and the idea of who he is more than necessarily who he's been. So what the Lakers are projecting, if this is their guy, is that in a long-term spot for at least 3 years as a core piece and starting forward on this group, he's going to flourish in what he's always supposed to have been, which is, what was he? I forget what number pick he was, but a lottery pick with tremendous athleticism and talent, that it'll crystallize there. And so that's the hope. I don't know that like he's a role player. Like I don't know that he's going to be the guy who's going to be the primary wing defender, who's going to catch and shoot off of Luka, who's going to move the ball the right way. But he might be the best choice. Now they could try to trade for like a PJ Washington with Dallas. Let's just pencil that. I don't know that it's possible. But let's say that the Mavericks, who have a new ownership, new leadership with Masai, new GM, new coach, they may not have the same love for PJ Washington that the previous regime did. He's played with Luka. He has a long contract that goes on forever. And maybe they want to get out of it. And maybe they're not charging the Lakers an exorbitant price. It's like Vanderbilt and Connect or something, or something. You're adding about a 20-ish or so a year, all the way to 29, 30. Last year's like 25 almost. So PJ is proven with Luka. He is more of an established. What PJ Washington is.
Sure.
He's not a great shooter. He defends. He's a role player who knows how to play off Luka. And almost most importantly, he's willing to take the three, whether he makes it or not. He understands like this is the shot Luka needs me to take. So from a point of view, you could go for like a lower upside, but more reliable. We know this works with Luka type player like PJ Washington. Maybe they don't have to trade some of those picks, but those picks at this point that's all they have left, but they're not even worth that much. So these are the kind of issues. I think maybe PJ is a pivot if Kuminga doesn't want to come, but I don't know if the Lakers want that money either. That's a possibility that they're not interested in that big a contract. So, that's kind of my take on that position. It's a void still. And, they could have gone instead of Sexton, maybe try to go get Kelly Oubre instead. Like that looked like Oubre's not a great shooter, but he's a good defender, plays multiple positions. He can guard 1 through 4. Maybe 1 through 5. I wouldn't really want him guarding a 5, but he's solid. So like they made their choices. It's not in a it's an area that needs addressing at that forward spot. I think Kuminga could be an answer. We've kind of mapped out the complexities of that. To me, PJ seems like the fallback position, but I don't know if they want that money or not.
So that by the way, I love that you took it from A to Z there. Like it walks us through kind of not just all the scenarios, but different ways of looking at it. And we'll see. I think like we said, some of these other dominoes fall, we'll probably have a better idea what happens with Kuminga and where his head is. And like you said, it might just be, we always look at things. It's easy to look at things from a team perspective. What does Jonathan Kuminga want? I do think he could actually, I think he'd have a lot of success with the Lakers, but we'll see how it all plays out. And I like you kind of mentioned the PJ Washington stuff as well, because I know that name's been thrown out. I want to switch gears here and kind of just get a little bit more of kind of an overall assessment of what you've thought of the offseason. It's been interesting, Eric, because I think the Lakers are probably one of the teams. First off, they're definitely one of the teams, if not the most team, that had a huge overhaul, right? Like, I mean, you go look at some of these playoff games and you go look at this roster now, it's like, who's here, and all the names that are gone, and established players that have been. Rui's been with the Lakers for a handful of years. I mean, obviously I don't have to tell you about LeBron. They made drastic changes. You went in and, you can go into as much details as you want in this, but you went in and in some of your articles and kind of every move that the Lakers made, you gave it a grade. Can you just kind of start with, again, you don't have to give every grade or anything like that, but just your overall assessment of the Lakers offseason, moving on from LeBron, bringing in some of the guys they did, not bringing back Rui Hachimura, Marcus Smart, some of these other guys. When you look at the Lakers today, what are you making more of a case of? Are you making more of a case that the Lakers, that this is the right offseason for them to have taken, the approach to take and everything else? And then just some of the additions of why you think some of these additions are the right fit, or where you have some question marks.
Sure. Well, I mean, they, for letting go of LeBron, as difficult as that is, that's an A for me. Like, it was time to move on for both sides. So, you have Luka, who is, a generational player. And what LeBron does is, it can work together. We've seen that, but you're not you're not going to have 5 years of LeBron. The goal is to have 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years of Luka at his best and giving him the pieces to win. And you have to start building that now. And if you're paying LeBron anywhere from 50 to 20 to whatever he'll come for, it just, the world is going to revolve around LeBron. And that's, he's earned that. And that's who he is. And he's arguably the best player of all time. I where he fits on that list, we can argue, but like some people are going to say 1, some may say 5. He's in that range. So that's an A. In terms of continuity, they get like a D because they didn't go with continuity. That's not a good or a bad thing, but you just got to the second round of the playoffs without your best player, if Luka's your best player, and you basically said, nah, we don't want that back. So they let, Kennard, who stepped up for them, Ruiz, Smart, who was a huge, addition last year, they let them go. So the continuity clearly wasn't a priority for them. That's not good or bad. It just is. And so if you're trying to build long-term around Luka, and if you're trying to build hold continuity, but you're holding on to guys who may not be there in 2-3 years, then continuity shouldn't be important. So I don't mind that. For Mamu, I had him on my target list for the Lakers. I had him as a highly valued free agent. That's a really good fit with Luka and Austin as a decision-making big who can score. Defensively, he's probably not going to help much, but you got Kessler. They need more help on defense. So I think Grimes was a good choice for a third guard because you need 3 established guards, right? Luka, Austin, Grimes. That's your core guards. You've got your scoring forward in Mamu. You've got your big to do what the bigs need to do in Kessler. And then from there, that's where we start to get a little dicey. I don't know that they needed to put that money into Sexton as a fourth guard. He is a good shooter, sure. But for me, if you're pivoting from LeBron, to me, the most important thing around Luka and Austin,
wings,
in addition to the center, is big, long, athletic wings. Not that you can get these guys, but Jaden McDaniels, Derek Jones Jr., guys who fully commit to being defenders on the wing, who can score a bit or shoot a little bit. And I'm not talking like 40% from 3, 33, 34, 35% from 3 you can live with if they're defending really well. So I feel like in terms of some of the moves, I'm like, I get it. And some of them I'm like, man, does, Thiero or, Carr, the young guys, are they capable of like really stepping into these roles that the Lakers could say, oh, we didn't do this because we think these young guys are the ones who are going to do it. And we saw Harper in the playoffs doing great things. Even Carter Bryant was able to contribute. Like, you can get young guys to do that. But, Thiero, I'm watching him. It's fun watching him. I'm at Summer League watching him. He's more athlete and energy than he is, like understanding necessarily, what to do yet. He has a long way to go. That doesn't mean he won't learn it immediately. Maybe he is. Carr plays with a great confidence as a rookie. He puts that shot up quick, but you can't overreact to Summer League. And I just don't know. So, maybe the Lakers would, if Jeannie Buss, Rob Pelinka were here, and I'm saying they're really, they didn't address the wing enough, maybe they would say, actually, it's these young guys that I don't know how good these young guys are and how important they are. Maybe that's the answer. So for me,
but could I say, Eric, the problem with that too is like, if we, there was a lot of conversation and pressure of like, you got to get off of LeBron. You got to go younger. You got to go this, got to go that. Well, I don't think people were saying, well, the solution is these first and second year players, right? Like, I think what you said about, let's just use as an example. Let's play the PJ Washington game. Is he a perfect fit? Probably not, but you know exactly what you're getting from him, right? I don't know what Adou Thiero is going to do in his second year in the NBA, where he really didn't get that much. And it wouldn't be fair for the Lakers to be in this win now mode. You got Luka Dončić and you got to build around him, but you need Cameron Carr to give you 20 minutes. Like, that ain't fair, right? So I think it's a fair set. And I'm just going to assume that they obviously know that as well, and that there is going to be a wing that eventually steps into that position where it's like, this wing is going to take predominantly the most minutes. If the Lakers were too old before, you can't swing all the way on the other side. And, well, now they're too young. what's that kind of middle ground that they're looking for? And I feel like that's not on the roster yet.
No, and look, they still have Jake LaRavia, who defends well on the perimeter. I felt like he really struggled in confidence and offense in the playoffs.
Big time.
Vanderbilt, I don't think JJ has confidence in Vanderbilt, and he doesn't shoot the ball well, can't score, doesn't finish particularly well at the rim. And, you know, I think the foot injuries have – what worked when Vanderbilt got paid was all the wild, you know, kind of like disruption that he did, which came with some athleticism that could be back this year as he's further removed from the foot injuries. So, you know, maybe this is it. Maybe Grimes plays a lot of 3 at guard, but is he the point of attack defender? Is he playing the 1? They'll, you know, JJ, you know, Coach Reddick is going to have a lot to figure out and how to make it work. Maybe Connect suddenly, you know, finds a role. You know, there's a lot of maybes and ifs. You know, I think Laker fans want to know, just like you said with PJ, you know what you're going to get. Laker fans want to know what this team is. You know, to me right now, best case, they're not better than the Spurs and the Thunder. You know, could they be third? Sure. You know, I just, you know, losing LeBron is significant though. You know, he is pretty special. So to just say, oh, they're better than they were last year when you're taking away LeBron is a tall order. And I don't mind that. If that's a step back, I don't mind that because it's the necessary step back for Luka's long-term future. So I don't have a problem with that. But I do feel like there's still some holes and uncertainties in what they've got. And the challenge, the heart of the challenge is they really put almost everything they have in terms of assets into making this team. So this is where they're at. And they don't have, like, each year you gain another pick down the road, but you know, they don't have a lot to trade in the future. And that, you know, that's potentially problematic where they're boxed in. And I don't know. And you know, I can't predict the future. You know, well, I can reasonably predict some of the future. But you know, we really don't know. And maybe it's as simple as, you know, Carr and Thiero, or, you know, even Magnon, who I'm watching in Vegas, is arguably their best wing defender on the roster because he was a all G League defensive player. Like, we didn't know where, you know, Austin came from nowhere. I saw Austin in Summer League a few years back when he was a baby, and I was like, this kid's going to play a big role this year. And I told his agent that when I first met him, and he was like, you think? And then you know, it happened. And so, you know, they do need a little bit of another, you know, Austin level miracle for this to work. But you know, that's happened. That's you know, it's an opportunity for these young guys or someone to step into this.
Yeah, I think predicting too, you just said something. We got one more left for you, and I know you got to get running as well. But I think the thing that you said about, you know, predicting what this team is going to be in the West, honestly, that Lakers might be one of the more bigger wild cards in the entire NBA right now. When you make that many changes and you're not 100% sure how's it going to fit, what's it going to look like, how much is, you know, maybe it looks phenomenal and it looks perfect. I do think it's incomplete. I do agree with you there. I do think that they need another wing. Obviously, we don't need to tell the front office that. They're aware of that. But we'll see how things play out. Last one I got for you, and just kind of how you read it, and if you feel like, I know before it was a popular conversation, you had mentioned to me a while back that you thought LeBron was not going to be a Laker anymore, and you thought at that time you thought he was going to be a Golden State Warrior. Do you have any angle of it when the dust settles where you think LeBron, let's put it this way, is it going to end up being one of the teams that we've been talking about, or do you feel like, hey, you know what, maybe LeBron kind of surprises us all and ends up on this contender or one of those types of things? How do you read it?
I mean, they did have me right on Bleacher, like come up with some wild card stuff, and I'm like, excuse me, the Wizards with AD, you know, like, you know, something crazy like that, or Dallas to play with Kyrie or something like that. And I don't think any of those are like realistic. And if you believe reports, you know, I haven't listened to Rich Paul's podcast. I've been, you know, swamped, but you know, like all 30 teams are in, or 29 teams are. I don't know that to be true, but
it's down to 26, Eric. It's just down to 26. They're going to do a countdown that will last for about 2.5 months, I think.
Lordy. Hopefully he won't track out that long. I wrote that for a very long time that I believe LeBron and the Lakers were done with each other, and it was that both sides were moving on, and I feel like that was vindicated. I've always written that I think it's the Warriors. That's always been the intel that I have, and I don't think you can go off of intel ever. I don't want to say ever. There are every so often I know like, oh, transactions already going to going to the league or something like that. But like realistically, like in this stage, we can't say like, oh, we know he's going to the Warriors. I don't care if LeBron told me that. I don't care if the Warriors told me that. If he hasn't made a commitment, it's not done yet. And so he could end up in Philly. He could end up with Miami. He could end up in Cleveland. Those are like the obvious ones. I'm leaving out a few. I don't think San Antonio's happening. I don't think New York's happening. You go team by team, and we can argue it for LeBron. Like, why would you play for the Warriors if you're still in the West and if you get through OKC and San Antonio? Why don't you go East where it's going to be, quote, easier to get to the finals? That's a viable argument, but we don't know what's important to LeBron. He may not want to leave, go too far from LA and to be an hour away from, let's say his family stays here for the most part. They obviously get more than one place. LeBron can afford many homes. But maybe his, jury, his wife spend most of their time here. He's an hour away. They can make that work. And you're playing with Steph. You're playing with Draymond, Porzingis. You start going on that. Jimmy would have to. Jimmy would have to get healthy and be Jimmy. Or maybe I know they want to trade for AD. That's the intel. I don't think the Wizards are trading AD, but maybe there's a universe where they get AD there. Like that's how I could see that formulating, and LeBron not necessarily ring chasing, but going to something that is interesting to him. And playing with Steph for Steve Kerr, who he has a relationship with, to me, and with Draymond, who's on Clutch, with Clutch Sports, it's interesting to me. I could see that being interesting for LeBron because it doesn't matter for me. It matters what I think, of what he would think. But if he really wants a ring, he's got to go East. You could say maybe Philly, maybe play with Giannis, or going back home for the second. They were the second best team in the East. We could look at how they got beat handily by the Knicks, but
they were like 22 in game one and with 7.5 to go.
And they probably don't lose that with LeBron there. You know what I'm saying? Like LeBron could put them over the top. And he's home to wrap up his career in a storybook ending, the last year or two of his career, however much he gives us. For me to sit here and say those are not possibilities would be insane. I'm not in the conversation. And even if I was, LeBron may not have made that decision. So what he would say to you right now, if that's not his final decision, he's a human being. We live in this uncertainty until we have to pick something, and then we make a choice and we live with it. So I don't think we know yet, but I'll stay by Golden State as the likely. I'll probably say Cleveland is second, but I can't wait to find out, and I would love to find out so we can kind of put it behind us. But equally, they're going to go on their schedule, not on our schedule.
I told you I'd have you out of here by 8:45. It's 8:48. Awesome. Pincus, I failed you. I apologize very much here. I appreciate it, brother. Great insight as always. Enjoy Vegas. Thank you for coming on, and I'm sure we'll connect soon.
Yes, sir. Anytime. Thanks for having me.
All right. That is Eric Pincus right there. The man right there. Great stuff. Always a great conversation. Always enjoy having him on. And where do we start with what Pincus said? Okay, so let me, just because the last thing he said was the LeBron thing. Here's what I can't wait for with LeBron. Can't wait for this. Zay just picks a freaking team. Let's go. Just pick a team. Okay? We get it. We understand that there's a lot of decisions to be made. You probably made a decision a month ago. Just pick a team. All right. Okay. That one we'll let that one go. I thought his points about and this will actually lead into one of our next conversations about Adou Thiero and Cameron Carr, but he's talking about who's going to step up, who's going to play that role for the Lakers. It sounds complicated to get Jonathan Kuminga. Let's be honest with each other here. It sounds like there's a lot that has to go on. If you'd have asked me maybe 4 or 5 days ago, do I think Kuminga is going to be a Laker? It sounded like there was more momentum towards that. Now it just sounds like more of like an equation that you're trying to solve, and you need a lot of things to go your way in order for that to happen. So that sounds like that's going to be a little bit of a challenge. for the Lakers. And obviously that wing position is going to be an important position. Here's what I want to do next. There is a world where Adou Thiero and Cameron Carr can play, obviously a bigger role for the Lakers. And I do want to talk a little bit about that. Obviously we're getting a chance right now to see them a little bit, the Cali Classic, the Summer League. So we'll do that here in just a second. Before we do, a quick shout out here, Brad Wallace and the Wallace Firm, official injury attorney of the channel, a phenomenal partner of our channel here on YouTube, and have just been, again, I continue to say this, very helpful and very loyal to the channel. The way the channel works and the way I can make this a real business is by all of you guys, subscribers, people who like what we're doing, great guests, but partnerships are also a big part of it as well. So shout out to Brad Wallace and the Wallace Firm for being a part of the show. WallaceWins.com/Sliwa, WallaceWins.com/Sliwa. That's the website. So just a heads up there. If anybody needs an injury attorney, a serious injury, wrongful death case, please just know that you got the best in the business that can represent you. Shout out to all our listeners that have reached out to me, say, hey, Al, you had mentioned Brad Wallace and the Wallace Firm, family member. They're in a situation. Can you make an introduction? I've done that. So you want to email me personally, you guys know how to get in touch with me, AlanSliwa@gmail.com. And I'm happy to help as well. Or you can go to the website, WallaceWins.com/Sliwa. All right, let's keep moving here. I'm going to look at a few of the comments here, and then I want to talk a little bit about this Cameron Carr, and we'll do Cameron Carr, and we'll do Adou Thiero a little bit. Slee, good guest. Thank you, sir. Pincus. Pincus is awesome. Pincus is great. Let's get a couple of these comments here. LeBron would be perfect on this current Lakers team. It's crazy. Well, they don't got the finances to give him anything, and I think it's already very, very well known already that he's no longer going to be a Laker. So, there was like an article last week of, why LeBron should come. Like, let's stop wasting your time. Let's not even waste our breath or energy. Ain't going to happen. Forget about Kuminga. Don't get mad at Jonathan Kuminga. Like, I know some people they feel a certain way, and it's like, what, screw him. The guy he's trying to make a proper business decision as well. And honestly, there are variables out there that have to happen first, and I completely understand it. The LeBron piece is a big piece that has to, eventually happen for the rest of the trickle effect. By the way, this Kawhi Leonard stuff, like, let's just say hypothetically, Kawhi Leonard is they find that this aspiration thing and they void his $50 million contract, whatever he has left. Like, there's still pieces that have to happen here. And I'm sure Jonathan Kuminga is part of this trickle-down effect. So I get it from that perspective. I got no issue with Jonathan Kuminga saying, look, it's cool. Yes, Lakers could be a good option for me. But we got to pump the brakes for a second here. I got to see what else happens, because I'm not going to sign for the Lakers and then find out that I left a lot of money on the table. Pass on Kuminga. We got a wonderful group of young talent we need to give time to. Okay, this is a good transition. So I'm getting ready for the show, and Eric, who's in the background producing the show, was talking a little bit about, hey, maybe if this Kuminga stuff doesn't work out, but what is that kind of? Does that allow more opportunity for the role of Adou Thiero and Cameron Carr? There's a couple. What was the article here? Law Murray's article for the Athletic. Adou Thiero's path to the Lakers minutes starts with winning possessions in Summer League. There are kind of a few people, I'm sure, that are watching Summer League and saying, "Wait a minute, here. What about Adou Thiero? What about Cameron Carr? How much of a role can these guys have?" Here's my only thing on both of those players. I think it's so imperative to have young talent on your team. I think it's so imperative for you to be able to draft well and develop well, to find talent that other teams don't see. And listen, there are a lot of teams. I think that's the beauty with the NBA. You can be a lottery pick, or you could be drafted in the second round. There's talent everywhere. But a bigger issue is, what team do you end up with? What front office is thinking about the future? Who are you properly getting developed with? And the Lakers just haven't done that good of a job in that department. I could look at other teams. I look at the Boston Celtics. I look at the Oklahoma City Thunder. I look at the San Antonio Spurs. There are teams out there that know how to draft and to properly develop. That doesn't mean the Lakers obviously didn't find and identify Austin Reaves. It doesn't mean that, they're the worst team in the NBA at it, but you have to be able to draft your own talent. The problem I have with those that want to throw on the shoulders of Adou Thiero and Cameron Carr and be like, well, you know what? Just let these guys grab a lot of these minutes if Jonathan Kuminga is not the player that comes. I think the Lakers window and their time, it's not fair to these players to be like, hey, go be the player, go be a player that is 6 years into the league, that understands the NBA, that understands the nuances of the day-to-day, and say, do it in 1 or 2 years in the league, or be a rookie and have that type of impact. I don't think that's fair. Now, would I like to see Adou Thiero get 15 minutes a game? Sure, I would. Would I like to see if Cameron Carr can be an NBA player? Absolutely. But the less pressure you put on those guys because you have a roster that's talented enough to hold their own, I think the better chance you have of Adou Thiero and Cameron Carr becoming, viable players for the Lakers. I think the problem is, this is not a good example, but it's the best that I got. It's like in the NFL. When I grew up and watching the NFL, you would draft a quarterback and that quarterback would sit for 2 years and just kind of, soak in what it is to be an NFL player and how they get there, and somebody else was starting. And that wasn't that pressure right out the gate. Now it's like, a lot of these teams draft an NFL player that's not ready to be in the NFL. Yes, you're going to have players that are ready, but they get thrown into the mix. And, next thing you know, 2 years later, that player's on a different team and just trying to keep his career going in the NFL. I'd like to see the Lakers with Adou Thiero and Cameron Carr. I want to see them get opportunities this year with the Lakers, but I want it to be more strategic. I want it to be more a luxury, not a necessity. So that's why I think it's also so important for the Lakers to, obviously get that wing player that they're looking for. If it ain't Jonathan Kuminga, then, find who that other player is going to be. And we've kind of gone through the different, names. Maybe it is Zaire Williams. Maybe it is Matisse Thybulle. Maybe it is Bruce Brown. Whoever that player is, you gotta be able to at least not put this pressure on Adou Thiero and Cameron Carr to come in and be like, well, sink or swim right now. It's like, no, we got a little bit of a life jacket that's on you. It's not going to be on your shoulders. This team is, if you make mistakes, it's not going to be all on you. And I think the Lakers obviously got to develop these guys properly. And in a year from now, maybe that's a different conversation, but there's, obviously steps to this, to the game. So I just wanted to throw that in there because I think that was important in regards to that. All right, let's do this. We got a ton of NBA stories that we can get into right now. And then I want to read some more comments as well. We got the weekend recap as well. So we'll do all that right now. And then we will call it a Monday. Shout out to everybody that's on the channel. Shout out to you guys supporting the channel here. I really appreciate everybody being here. Subscribe, like, and share if you think anybody else would like this video as well. Greatly appreciate that. It helps out the channel a ton. All right, let's take a look at some of the comments here as we go. Kuminga is perfect for a team like the Hornets. No pressure, just play. All right, let's get another one in here. Kuminga didn't want to give the ball up to the greatest shooter in the history of the NBA. But y'all think he's going to defer to Luka? That situation in Golden State was always kind of odd. And I'm sure there was a lot more going on in the background than we know and that we'll probably ever know. But yeah, the Kuminga thing, it looked like Kuminga was like, he was going to flourish in Golden State. And then it was, yeah, this guy's not getting PT and key minutes and everything else. I think the fact that Atlanta didn't just immediately after they trade for him, sign him to a long-term deal, that there's some hesitation there. But listen, based on the Lakers right now and their situation and their position, it's not going to be, doesn't seem like it's going to be a long-term contract for Jonathan Kuminga. I'd take that risk in a heartbeat. Jonathan Kuminga is still bitter about Schroedering his bag. He's 8 and 2.0 pass. Okay, so interesting. So you got kind of a handful of Laker fans out here that got different opinions as well. All right, let me shout out here. I got a member show coming up. I owe the members a little bit this week, so we'll make it happen. A member show coming up this Friday. Shout out here, gifting 5 Hoops Talk memberships. Shout out to Laker Queen. Appreciate that very much. Very, very nice of you to do so. What are we doing? 9:30 on Friday. We're going to do, is it on Friday? Maybe on Thursday. I got to figure out Thursday or Friday. But I'll let you guys know as we get a little bit closer to the end of the week here. We will do a member show. So shout out to the members. Thank you very much for being a member. If you're not a member, haven't been, give it consideration. $3 a month, and it's a great way to support the channel. We do a show every single week. Okay, let's get a couple more in here. Let's flip here. I want to do, let me see what we have here. Let's flip to shout out again. Thank you very much for gifting out those memberships. Let's get a couple NBA stories in here, and let's put the recap, the weekend recap on the bar here. Of course, that is presented by Brad Wallace and the Wallace Firm. So shout out to them. wallacewins.com/Sliwa. Here's what went on over the weekend and a couple NBA stories. Bam Adebayo probably could have been better than the Conor McGregor fight. I didn't see the Conor McGregor fight, but I know it ended in like 60 seconds. Well, you also got Bam Adebayo versus Tyler Hero. I did not know that was in Vegas as well. Didn't know that was going to be part of the mix as well. Over leaked text messages where Hero was criticizing Bam Adebayo. Can I just give everyone probably just a bit of advice here? Bam, not sure if you need to punch Tyler Hero and Hero. Maybe you guys can kind of talk that one out. Not sure if I'll tell you one thing. I don't think Hero's winning that battle. Let's say that. I think Bam Adebayo's got a little more reach on him. You know, if this was one of those kind of profiles of the two fighters and they're showing what the size-wise, their reach and their weight, pretty sure Bam Adebayo is going to win that battle. Victor Wembanyama and the San Antonio Spurs come to an agreement. 5 years, $252 max extension. Wemby decided on the 25% maximum and not the 30% maximum that would have made the contract worth $303 million. Okay, interesting. The deal potentially saves the Spurs roughly $50 million over the next 5 years. And then the last NBA story I'm going to get into here real quick came over the weekend, part of our weekend recap. Warriors hire Frank Vogel as their new associate head coach under Steve Kerr. Vogel was obviously an assistant under Jason Kidd in Dallas the last 2 seasons before Kidd was let go by the Mavs back in May. Frank Vogel, a championship head coach of the Lakers, was part of that 2020 championship run. Lakers Summer League, they go 2-0 in their first 2 games of the Las Vegas Summer League. 96-84 win over the Thunder on Friday, 91-70 win over the Mavs on Saturday. The only things I'm really paying attention to, kind of looking at a few of these players, Adou Thiero had 20 points on Friday night, also had 4 rebounds, 4 assists. Cameron Carr, 18 points. That was on the game on Friday night as well. Didn't play on Saturday due to a right thumb injury. And then I think the person everybody's kind of been talking about, Arthur Kaluma, 34 points, 5 rebounds for the Lakers on Saturday. So kind of makes it fun to watch some of these youngsters play. Next game for the Lakers tomorrow night at 7 p.m. They're taking on the Clippers on Prime Video. Okay, let me read 1 or 2 final comments, and then we're calling it a day. What do we got here from the people? What do we got here from the people? Let's see. Somebody's saying Bam threw more punches than might be right on that. Threw more punches than Conor McGregor. Got you. People still in here talking about LeBron. Move on. This is Luka and AR's team. Let's see what this dream team is going to do. Carr is way more ready than Thiero. Yeah, Carr is more of a basketball player. He's a combo. He's a basketball player and he's an athlete. Thiero's an athlete. So completely different positions, would be asked to do completely different things. So it's a good point there. And I think there's a reason for it. All right, let me get a couple more in here. We'll go another minute or so. Development is key. I agree. Lakers haven't done it. Yeah, they just get caught up too much in win now. And there was a quote, and part of the reason why I played that thing with Austin Reaves earlier in the show with Dan Patrick, it was not one of the first times, but it's like and I think new ownership will help them with this. Just think of the future. Think long term. That's it. Just think long term. And you're going to make mistakes along the way, and not everything is going to work out in your favor, but you got to think long term, and I don't think the Lakers have done a good enough job doing that. Wemby, $49 million a year. AR, 40. I knew that was coming. Somebody was going to put, I was trying to do the math in my head while I was reading that. We're starting to make the comparisons. I got you. I understand where you're coming from in that. I get that one. All right, my people, that's all we got for today. I really appreciate you guys joining the show. Still obviously pumping out as much content as we can. We're doing it here in the mornings as well at 8 a.m. I'm back on tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. We'll come back here, see what other news has kind of trickled down, and we'll be ready for everybody here. Thank you for being here. Hope you guys have a great rest of your Monday, and I will see you tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Thank you, everybody.